What is this? Train for any argument with Harvard's former debate.
Disagreement. Our public conversations are in a state of crisis. They're stuck. It's people fully convinced of their views, shouting at each other from a distance. One of the reasons why we find it so difficult is, I believe, because the skills of good argument have been atrophying for some time.
Yeah, and here's the thing. When people can't, like, all right, let's put it to, like, human beings, we tend to do what we do best, right? So, like, if there's a big guy, fucking buff, large, like, MMA fighter, right? He's getting into an argument with, like, a small, fucking really smart graduate from, let's say, Harvard. He's gonna resort, at least in my mind, after the Harvard guy starts fucking bullying him with words, right? After he starts, like, owning him in his kind of way, then as a human reaction, he would say, okay, I'm gonna get mad and I'm gonna get physical and I'm gonna get imposing, right? And now what we have is we have a lot of people that have really strong points. They don't know why they have really strong points though, right? Because a lot of media and a lot of people in the media sort of spout their bullshit and want you to fucking soak it up. And because we've been sort of trained to soak up bullshit through our education system, that's what we're doing. We're coming in here and soaking up whatever we want to hear, right? Oh man, it's the white man. He's the reason why you're fucking poor. It's not because you don't work or you don't want to fucking, better yourself or like, oh, it's all the white man. I'm not saying there's no systematic, systematic there's not systematic oppression that people face, because that is the case, but like there's a lot of self-responsibility or self-ownership that people sort of brush off, right? It's systematic. So I'll always be like this. I shouldn't even try. Oh yeah, they're just gonna do this. Look, I'll just wait for them to give me the check, and then we'll be good. And I'll just, I can have that little extra. I can stay working at McDonald's. Like, no, bro, you can push yourself, right? Like, you can find ways to better yourself, and then maybe those ways will lead you to making more money or having connections to get a better job. You can better yourself. You can meet other people doing things, make connections. Like, there are things that you can do to better yourself no matter what position that you're in. But it's easier to tell you, it's the system. That's really a problem with I think that's a little bit of a problem. That's me a little critiquing of the left, right? But then the right is like the completely opposite, in the opposite direction. It's like, oh, we're all equal. Nothing's ever happened between black people and white people to make it any kind of difference in like the community or the society. Slavery was how many years ago? Like, come on. That doesn't mean anything. Like, you guys are just complaining. And it's like, some of that shit is valid. When you go back a couple of generations and your relatives were a slave, you go back a couple of generations and your relatives were slave owners, you're going to have a completely different family, generations later, right? Even if the slaves were freed. Like, they have to start from zero when the other people started from, well, they started from zero maybe before they went and got the fucking slaves, but the slave trade is one of the main reasons why America became as powerful as it was, as fast as it did, right? Like, most countries starting off don't fucking, don't become like a major superpower, right? No. We started off, we succeeded from England and became very rich and very powerful. A lot of that was due to slavery. We literally helped build this country. It's neither here nor there. Let me go back to the topic, right? Us as people do not know how to debate. We don't know how to argue points. And a lot of times we don't even know, like, the real reason why we support the points that we support. Okay, all we're told to do something. You're left, you're right. So if you're left, you believe this. If you're right, you believe this. And if you honestly believe in your own shit, kind of like I do, like there's some shit on the right I believe, there's some shit on the left I believe, you get shunned by each side. So if you're not all the way on the left agenda, if you're not all the way on the right agenda, they shun you. And a lot of that is because we don't know how to debate topics, we don't know how to argue, and then after the argument is done, we don't know how to come to a conclusion and an agreement. It's just fuck you, no fuck you. All it is two middle fingers, like, I can't, pointing at each other, see? Like this. You see what I'm doing? See the analogy? I hope this is working. All those smart words just end with this very vulgar hand gesture. And it's just kind of like they're pointing to me too. Anyway, yeah, that was just a quick little ramble.
View argument as something to be worked at. Rather, we see it as something we jump into out of instinct or defensiveness. The bad arguments that result decrease our confidence in what disagreements can do for us. So the quality of the conversation further degrades. I think we need to restore confidence and faith in what disagreements can be, and to highlight its potential as a source for good as well as a source for ill. My name is Bo So. I'm a two-time world debate champion, a former coach of the Australian and Harvard debate teams, and I am the author of Good Arguments.
Okay.
For me, my love of debate is inextricably tied to a life that I've led of always moving countries. I had to move from South Korea to Australia as an 8-year-old without really speaking English. And I quickly found the hardest part of crossing language lines, of cultural lines, was disagreements.
Hey, what's up, Kaya?
People tend to be more disruptive, to interrupt, to speed up and slow down. In response to all that, I resolved to be very agreeable in the way in which I presented at school and to keep my thoughts to myself. The thing that changed that was I joined the debate team off the strength of one promise, which was that in debate, when one person speaks, no one else does. And to someone who had been interrupted and spun out of conversation, that sounded to me like a kind of salvation.
That is also a point of debate that people don't listen to. Like, nowadays, they're gonna cut you off in the middle of your shit. They're gonna get into it. It's gonna be bad.
If intelligence is the ability to respond to any argument, wisdom lies in knowing which arguments to respond to and which parts of an argument to respond to. Arguments are easy to start and hard to end because there are any number of differences between two people. And unless you're careful to say, we're having this disagreement at this moment and not all the other disagreements we could be having, all of the differences between two people can start flooding in. And the argument becomes this unruly mass where any of the potential sources of conflict can come to the fore, and you're not making progress on any given one. One of the frameworks that I developed in order to pick my fights more wisely is called the RISA framework. Before launching into a disagreement or challenging a claim, ask 4 things. First, whether the disagreement is in fact real, as opposed to a misunderstanding. Second is to ask whether it's important enough to you to justify the disagreement. The third is to ask whether the topic of disagreement is specific enough in order for you to make some progress. And the fourth is to ask whether you and the other person engaged in the disagreement are aligned in your objectives for wanting to partake in that conversation. By checking off on these...
Damn, that last one is very fucking crucial. If you're getting into a debate with somebody and all they want to do is like spread their hatred on your platform, you're not getting into a good faith debate. They're gonna say whatever they want, no matter what your response is. God, that's really good. I hope he gets into each one of them, applying the RISA framework. Okay.
These 4 lists. You can't guarantee that a conversation is going to go well, but you may be able to give it the best possible chance of doing so. One of the limitations of the RISA framework...
This dude looks like I'm about to fucking debate your entire ass off. It almost looks sexual. He's like, she don't know she about to get this debate. All right, old daddy. Y'all kids need to get out this room. Grandma about to get the D. Oh, I don't need to hear that. She about to get the debate.
One of the limitations of the RISA framework that I worry about is that it is increasingly difficult to find the right...
Oh my God, I just realized something. Old, disagreeable man with glasses and a gray beard? This is the skeletal structure of me. If I grow this old, he's skinnier than me though, probably in better health. Anyway.
One of the limitations of the RISA framework that I worry about is that it is increasingly difficult to find the right kind of alignment in people's interest for wanting to engage in a disagreement. So if you have two sides that simply want to hurt one another's feelings, that's some kind of alignment, but not the right kind that leads to productive conversation.
Nah, generally not.
So one place where you might be able to apply the RISA framework is getting together with extended family for Thanksgiving or Christmas and knowing that some of the personal or political Thanksgiving.
What the fuck is that? Alright, I'm sorry. White people, can you tell me what this dish is? Because a pecan or a walnut or whatever kind of nut is about to come out of that. I thought this was like potatoes. But look, that's a fucking pecan. Is that rosemary on the top? What are they serving? I wouldn't serve this to a prisoner. I'm sorry, it just kind of... I gotta listen, because the disgusting food threw me off.
So one place where you might be able to apply the RISA framework is getting together with extended family for Thanksgiving or Christmas.
That's the worst shit ever.
Some of the personal or political disagreements are gonna bubble up to the surface.
Yes, they are.
The RISA framework...
When the... oh my God. Uncle Jeff has been drinking the eggnog again. And he's starting to talk about trans people. She's like, we gotta shut Uncle Jeff up. Quick. And fucking another thing, right? Like, why the fuck can't I just go into any bathroom I fucking want to? Like, alright. Like, she's like, okay, Uncle Jeff, calm down.
Provides two sources of help in that situation. The first is that every disagreement should start with a little bit of agreement. And that is often naming exactly what it is that you disagree about, so that it doesn't bubble up into all the different areas in which you don't see eye to eye. First step is to name the disagreement in front of you. The second thing is to check, well, why do you want to engage in this disagreement? And can we come to an agreement about what it is that we're hoping to get out of this conversation? So forcing the slightly quarrelsome family member who just wants to be a contrarian or to cause trouble to say, are you really in this, hoping to persuade me to change my mind? That bit of negotiation of why it is that we're in the conversation in the first instance can often allow our conversations to go better than if we just jump into the disagreements without much forethought. It allows us to almost make a contract with the other side. This is what we're disagreeing about, and these are the reasons why we're engaging in that dispute. And one of the things that you can do with...
If you ever get into a huge political disagreement at the fucking dinner table during Thanksgiving, here's what you do. Herbal secret, okay? You fucking passing around the food or whatever, you get the gravy, you look the guy you're disagreeing with directly in the eye, and you pour the gravy into your glass. Water, whatever, apple cider, whatever's in there, you pour the gravy into your glass until the gravy fills your glass to the very brim. Then you stop, and then pass the gravy, and then look him dead in the eye and drink the whole thing directly in front of him without making a face, without blinking, without breaking eye contact. And like set it down, and then say, what was that? He's done right there. Everything he just said without the fucking window. He's gonna be like, who the fuck am I dealing with right now? Who is this fucking Captain Ahab fucking white whale slaying? Who is this fucking Bruce Wayne as Batman in the middle of the night motherfucker that I am talking to? Because you're not my nephew. My nephew's gone. It's been replaced by Thor. You see what I'm saying? Right there, that's a tip. It's an herbal tip. Take that home. Don't tell nobody.
someone who tries to break those rules, to expand the debate into something it wasn't about, to change the topic, to introduce new reasons for wanting to engage in the dispute, is just to remind ourselves of the agreement that we made and to bring the conversation back to those parameters. Just as any number of the differences between two people can give rise to a disagreement, any number of things that people say within an argument can be contested.
The success cases, these are the ones in which the revolution works. Closing, I'll take you if you have something.
And a part of the wisdom one has to develop as a debater is to know which arguments to challenge and which to let go.
A Marxist revolution at this point doesn't change that structure.
And will lead to a huge period of economic instability that will take
Apparently
away
in their
the
world,
livelihood.
if we're to buy the premise of their case at all,
There are two questions that we often ask to make that decision. The first is this disagreement between the two sides necessary to resolve in order to make progress in the argument? And if it's not, is us challenging it going to help us make progress on the overall dispute? No matter how offensive or wrong-seeming it may be, by asking whether it's first necessary to challenge, or even if it's not, whether challenging it would help us make progress on the argument, you can be a little bit more judicious in how you disagree and prevent our arguments from becoming this unruly, all-encompassing dispute. One of the great lessons of debate is, in order to be heard, you have to first listen.
True.
We're used to thinking about listening as an essentially passive act. We sit back in our chairs and take it all in.
No,
Debaters
active. You
know
have to
that
actively listen.
It's a much more active process than that. There are two lessons that we can take away from how debaters listen and to try and apply it in our own lives.
I've said this before. The scariest person you can have a disagreement with is somebody that's actually listening to what the fuck you're saying and then going off of that, right? And looking for inconsistencies in that. Because if you're getting into an argument with somebody that's just trying to push their points, all you have to do is fucking, reject their points, disprove or essentially add distrust, it goes, to your audience, to who you're fucking debating, right? But like if somebody's actively listening to what you're saying instead of just like, because you can tell when somebody's really listening to what you're saying, they're taking notes and shit. Remember what you said, blah, blah, blah. Well, you're fucked. If you're not really on your shit, if you're not on your fucking P's and Q's, like if it was me, I'd be fucked. Because I usually don't go into my arguments preparing for anything. But if you just have a dude that's just out there trying to just like, did you know this, and that? And you can fucking shut that shit down pretty easily. But if somebody's listening to what you're saying and like picking your shit apart, even if it's not wrong, even if you have somebody just repeat something to repeat it, so you're saying this statistic, are you really saying this statistic? Just to clarify. Yeah, that just one fucked you a little bit because you're like, is my statistic right? If you haven't done the research. And two, the people in the audience or whoever that are listening to you, you definitely threw a fucking dick in their ear because they're like, is this motherfucker even right? Now, like you just threw doubt. You just threw doubt into it. That's what really good lawyers do, and that's what really good debaters can do. But I guess that's more of an informal debate kind of thing.
The first is, it is in your best interest to understand the opposition's argument as they would understand it. It's not in your best interest to twist their meaning or to take it at its worst or to capture only a fraction of it, because they won't feel as though they had been listened to and heard and ultimately responded to. The second thing is, it's also in your best interest to respond to the strongest version of the other side and sometimes to build up the other side's case so that it's even better than where they have it now. After you finish speaking, the opposition might have a light bulb and come up with a better case. Or someone on their side might say, you've responded to the weak version of this argument, but here's something better. So the further you can take it, and the stronger the version of the other side you can respond to, the more you challenge the other side to go even further, and the better the conversation becomes. So much of debate is an exercise in certainty. It's about spending sometimes weeks researching your side of the case, coming up with the best possible arguments that you can to sell the truth of your side to the listener. But in the last moments before a debater goes on stage, they know to take out a new sheet of paper and to put themselves in their opponent's shoes and write the 4 best arguments for the opposing side. They know also to look over their case again, this time through the eyes of someone who fervently disagrees with them, to identify all of the flaws and the criticisms that could be leveled against them. Debaters also know to imagine a world in which they lost the debate and to come up with the reasons why they did. Those exercises, which are called the side switch exercises, puts a pause on that feeling of certainty.
Yeah.
It makes us feel for a moment the subjective reasonableness of other people's beliefs. It gives us that moment where we get back on our toes and think maybe we missed something. It makes us imagine a world in which we're wrong. And all of that creates a wriggle room through which something like humility or empathy might arise. The side switch exercises and the kind of empathy that debate brings into the conversation is not only applicable in personal disagreements, but in my view, more urgently needed.
I'm not gonna lie, they have some fire B-roll. They got fucking Chad and the boys here.
Not only applicable.
This is the whitest black guy I've ever seen in my life.
Debate brings into the conversation.
Like, I'm not gonna lie, bro. Look at the smile. Like, look at the fucking, like, this is the whitest black guy I've ever seen in my life. I love you, bro. Stay solid, but come on. Like, not even, like, it's not even light skin or dark skin. He could be dark skinned and just this whole face and like mannerisms and everything. Like, you're still the whitest motherfucker I've seen in my life. Oh, bro. I'm sorry. You could be on a white sitcom and nobody would say shit to you, bro. Like, you realize that? Or you could be like the neighbor and nobody would say a goddamn thing to you. Oh, the Oakleys. Their neighbor Kevin, who has a crush on Danielle. This is fucking Kevin. Man.
Is not only applicable in personal disagreements, but in my view, more urgently needed than ever in our political disputes and ideological commitments. Each of us are bigger than our political affiliations, than our religious commitments, than our ideological beliefs. It's in that setting that exercises like side switch become most effective. It expands the scope of what we are able to talk about. It enlarges and improves and strengthens our ability to talk about contentious and difficult issues in humane, compassionate, and productive ways.
Damn.
Get smarter, faster with videos.
That was fucking awesome. It was an awesome video. It was a great video. I like that.